Hello, this is National Chess Master Rats. I'm here to continue my video series on Member Best Games. You have to be a member of my video lessons group at chess.com. Then go to the forums and find the thread on Post Your Best Games. Submit a PGN of one game, and I'll work my way through the queue. I will get to every one of them, so keep them coming. And I'm catching up from my recent move, and this is a game from SamChesster. I actually got to meet Sam in Las Vegas right after Christmas. I went up just briefly to spectate at the North American Open. I originally intended to play in the Open section, and because of my move, it just wasn't feasible. But I went up anyway and got to see a few old friends and make some new ones. So anyway, Sam is very dedicated to my teaching. He watches my videos several times, and he's really trying to apply himself. And he's not going to play the best game every time. He's coming along, and hopefully some suggestions I'll make here will help him. Anyway, let's have a look at the game. Okay, so it's King's Indian defense, and this is perfectly fine opening for either side at this point. And now we see the four-pawn attack. It's kind of an aggressive approach to play against the King's Indian. I remember was talking to my old friend Grandmaster Larry Christensen back in 1982. He was going to be playing in the interzonal Moscow, to try to reach the candidates for the World Championship. And on his list of opponents was Garry Kasparov, who wasn't yet world champion. And he had studied Kasparov's games and came to the conclusion that Garry was a little uncomfortable with attacks against his king. So Larry prepared a four pawns attack, and unfortunately Kasparov knew it better, and Larry lost the game. But he made an interesting encounter out of it. If you want to ever see the game, it's easy to find. Christensen Kasparov 1982 Moscow. It's out there somewhere on the internet. Anyway, but what happens here is White starts doesn't get his development going. He's got this nice impressive formation now. It looks great. But Black is getting developed. He's got his king side done. He's just got to work on the queen side. And one of the strategies to employ is to start taking pot shots at the white center. And I'm not sure of all the book moves here. C5, I think, is one of them. At some point, you're going to strive for E5. And Sam continues with C6, which is perfectly fine. But now White starts, as I say, going bonkers. He just doesn't seem to grasp what's going on here. One thing I stress in my videos is you've got to develop. Develop your pieces. Get your king castled. Because once your pieces are on good squares, they can start finding better ones. When they're sitting at home, they're not doing any good. Just as a war game, would you send your army out to battle and leave half of them at home against a full fighting force? Well, the answer is no, you wouldn't. So why do you do it in chess? Okay, A4 accomplishes absolutely nothing for the white position. Okay, Bishop E2, Bishop D3, followed by castling. If White wants to castle queenside, then Bishop D2 or E3, Queen C2, and he can do that. Needed a plan here. So Black continues his development, and once again White starts moving pawns. Big mistake. Okay, H3. I see this come up so many times in lower rated player games. By lower rated, I mean usually under 1700, because I've even seen 1600s do it. H3 is just a bad move, especially in the opening. It doesn't develop anything. Okay, the idea is to keep something out of G4. What can go there? Well, we know a knight can go there. We know a bishop can go there. But what's the harm if Black puts something there? What does it do to the white position? Well, it does absolutely nothing. It pins a knight, but if the bishop goes there, but the knight's only covering D4, the queen's got that battened down. The bishop can come up to E3 if you're worried about it. Okay, if you're worried about D4. The knight going to G4 by itself does absolutely nothing for Black. He's not attacking anything. So white's just wasted, basically wasted his last two moves, and all black has to do is do what he does. He continues his development, and once again, white defies logic. Uh, where's the king safety here? Uh, he throws another pawn up. I mean, wow, it looks like white's got greater boardroom. Look at that. White's controlling every square on his fifth rank with the exception of h5. Those pawns are covering every single square. The knights, except for h5, the knight on c3 and f3 are hitting 4 more squares. So white's got some pressure there, but he's got nothing to back things up. He's got no development behind it. Now, all black has to do is do what he does. He breaks the center open. And when the center opens up, since black is developed, black's pieces are going to take the active squares and occupy them, and thus be the one to make the first threats. Okay? It's that simple. So how do you handle when somebody plays like this? You just break open the position. Black's ahead in development. Black's castled. The only thing black hasn't developed yet is the queen bishop and the queen rook. And those at this moment they're not all that needed because white's only developed 2 pieces and a whole lot of pawns. Okay, so black plays energetically in the center. Now, what should white do? Well, white shouldn't be opening up the position. If you're behind in development, don't open up the position. That's just a general rule. If you don't understand it, this is an example which will help you understand. And the reason is because, as I've said, the player with the better development is going to occupy the squares, and they'll move a second time, and then they're ready to move a third time and get to even better ones. Okay, so probably what white should do is, well, he can ignore that. He can just play bishop e2. Okay, bishop e2, and if black captures on either f4 or d4, white has an immediate recapture, and he still preserves much of his center pawn formation. But by opening up the center, it's starting to expose some of the weaknesses that white has created for himself. And I didn't mention it, but I'll mention it again. When white played h3, look what it did to this diagonal against the king. Okay, that becomes the white king is very vulnerable along that line, and if he gets checked, he can't castle. He loses the right to castle, and that'll further cramp his development. And if his king stays in the center, it's going to be ripe for attacking. Okay, so white follows a bad plan and opens up the position. And now the black pieces, which, well, let's just back it up and I'll explain it again. What is black threatening in the white position? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. He can't occupy these squares on the 4th rank because they're all under pretty much under white's control. Even if black captures, as I said, on either f4 or d4, then white's going to get the pawn back and move a piece. The bishop will get developed to f4, or the knight will be redeployed to d4. But lines are starting to open up. The e-file will be opening up. Black can stick a rook on it. White can't put a rook on an open file. They're not developed. His bishops are in the way. He can't connect them. His king is not castled. That's one step to getting your rooks connected. His castle. The queen's in the way. So again, white opens up the position, and black's ready to seize it. And now white plays this move. And now this creates another weakness in the white position. The e4 pawn is now isolated. It can never be defended by a pawn. Okay? Well, it could if white takes on f3 and black takes back with his pawn. But black's going to have good moves here. One of them would be a queen 3 check is in the offing. Okay, so for the moment, black has a little bit of a threat. Yeah, he's going to displace the white king. So white needs to deal with this. And all of a sudden, the white's center has collapsed. It's gone. He's just left with this wing formation over here, and black's all ready to do some damage. This rook wants to swing to d8, tempo the queen. Maybe this bishop will come into play somewhere, getting the other rook ready to come in. Black's just got this great game. White's still searching to get developed. Okay, so what does white do? White says, I see a tactic. I can pin that knight, and I'm attacking it twice. And I'm threatening to win it. Now, here, what black played is fine, but there was a better move. I'm going to show you what black played first. He played knight fd7 to secure the knight. But I kind of want to get you guys to steer away from making moves like this, because what this has done is just shut in your bishop, which you want to get in the game. There's other ways to do this, and let me show you the good move here. Knight h4, or rather h5. This puts the question to the bishop. Okay, now white either has to retreat the bishop or make a capture on e5. Otherwise, he's going to lose a piece. So let's take a look at the obvious move here, so to speak. Bishop h2. Now, how does black continue? Okay, well, he's got a lot of good moves at his disposal. One is to swing the rook over to d8 and attack the queen. And suddenly, like I say, the black pieces are just starting to swarm here. Queen e2 could be trouble. Black gets this knight takes knight check in, and then the knight on c3 is loose. Okay, black's got to deal with this queen, but it's being threatened with check. If white comes up, black just continues the pressure here, and I mean, there's just so many good moves at his disposal. He can play bishop e6, and white's just basically in trouble. Again, he can even play. I mean, there's just so many good moves. Sit down and try to analyze it out. That's what I recommend you do when your game is featured. I'll make some suggestions, and I can't answer everything on a video, but you can sit down and spend 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, a couple hours, just to have fun, look at all the possibilities. I mean, this certainly looks promising, and now we're going to come in here and threaten to check you and displace your king. Maybe stick this knight in here. Black's got all the chances here. White has nothing, absolutely nothing. Okay, so let's go back. There was after knight h5. The other choice is to take on e5. Let's get that over and done with. Well, now here's the threat of bishop g3 check, and if you take the bishop off, it doesn't go away. The threat is still queen g3 check, and as well as queen takes c3 check, and we can stick this knight into some great squares, which white created that weakness himself by playing h3. We don't play f3 and g4 on the first moves because we could get mated in two. Why is white being so cooperative in weakening his king position with h3? It's not a mate that he falls into, but he just runs into damaging his own king position. So again, black has all the luxuries here and would have had a fine game had he played knight h5, but instead he opted for knight d7, fd7, which, as I say, is still playable, and white's going to continue to misplay this position. And here he finally gets his bishop developed, but black has some ideas of his own, and the first thing black does is he improves the position of his queen with a threat. Okay, now the queen's, it's broken the pin. It's threatening to win a pawn on b4, and nothing wrong with winning a pawn, especially when you're ahead in development. That a lot of times when you stop and win a pawn, you do it at the expense of a couple of tempos, and a pawn is worth 3 tempos. So if your opponent gets 3 tempos in development for the pawn, the game's still a game. Okay, if he doesn't get 3 tempos for a pawn, if he gets none, then it's pretty much going to be very close to a winning position for black. And again, black is up several tempos, although white's finally getting some development. White White cannot afford to give up the pawn on b4. The other point about queen b6 is it stops white from casting kingside. So white defends his pawn and develops his queen, but now black's able to take advantage of a useful pin. Okay, and now black's threatening the queen. White can't take the knight or he'll lose his queen, and White decides to hold on to the pawn, but he overlooks the fact that it's going to cost him a piece. So White makes a blunder here, queen a3, and now White's going to lose a piece, and Black continues with this knight fork. And even though White can get rid of the knight, another one takes its place, and now his king's is in the center of the board where it's very vulnerable. He couldn't go to f1. Putting the king on f1 would simply allow a mate in 1, so he has to step to the queen side. So he comes up to d2, and now Black just collects a piece. And Black didn't do anything special here. He just developed his pieces and then broke open the center at the right time. So White decides to get rid of that menacing queen. It looks like it wants to come down here with check and be a nuisance. So White gets rid of it, and that's no problem for Black. He's up a piece. This is fine. And White plays this puzzling move. I would start thinking about getting my king over to the side of the board real quick with king c2. So Black just attacks the rook. And now the rook comes over here and takes away the king's flight square that I was suggesting, although he still has c1. But anyway, a6, it's not really needed. Just continue development. There's nothing wrong with checking on d8 and then just bringing the rook up to d7 and doubling the rooks. White can't afford to make exchanges because it'll just take him down to a lost ending, and Black's getting ready to try to administer some kind of an attack. So just keep developing. But a6, Black can afford this luxury, but you don't want to take too many luxuries when you're winning a game. You want to put your opponent out of his misery if you can when you have him down, because the tougher he is, let me rephrase that, the stronger player he is, the more determined he is going to be to try to save it. And I learned, years and years ago when I was a lower rated player, I might get a lucky advantage or even winning position against a stronger player, but they would dig in and I would be settling for second, third, and fourth best moves, and suddenly my advantage was gone, and I would end up drawing or losing a winning game. Anyway, Black has the luxury, and here's White shoving pawns again. What's he doing? I don't think he knows what he's doing. Apologies, White. Okay, so now White decides to put the king in the center of the board. Ooh, that's just asking for trouble. So king c1 would have been safer, I guess, but it really doesn't matter. White's down a piece with no compensation. And here it's kind of interesting. Black has a nice fork, a win of winning the queen, and he missed it. Just rook d3 check. Ouch. White can safely resign. Instead, Black guards his bishop. Now, you might say, well, what if he takes en passant? Well, you get to take back. Well, you got to be careful here. Let's see. This is kind of tricky. If he takes en passant, if you take the pawn with check, the king comes out. And I have a feeling he's not going to be long for the world, being out that far. Now Black's got a queen and a bishop under fire. There's probably something obvious I'm missing here, but I'm thinking, if anything, Black can just give this piece up. And now we've covered, we've covered the e3 flight square. We just have to cover the g3 square. That should be easy enough. We've given the piece back, but I'm thinking there's probably a mate here, and I'll leave it to black to try to solve it. Let's see, bishop h6 check, put the king back on g3, and then we can go ahead and play. Well, we just leave the bishop here on g7. What about rook d3 right now? Attack the queen, and that cuts e3 off, and then so the white has to save his queen, either move it or interpose. Let's just move it for the sake of argument. Where are we going to move it to? My God. If you put it on c1, it could get into trouble. No, white has a resource on bishop check. But let's just put it on c1. But you see now we've cut the e3 square off, and we just go about our business and check him. And like I say, that king is not long for the world here. If anything, we can even grab this thing off, and these two bishops are just killers. Black's winning material. There's so many ways to win this, and just like Sam missed it, maybe I'm missing something painfully obvious, but the purpose is not to be 100% precise. It's something that goes without saying. I think too many chess authors try to be perfectionists in their analysis. In other words, they want to show absolutely everything, everything correct, because they're so afraid that if they publish something that's got a little flaw, someone's going to point out, gee, look at this grandmaster. He's a grandmaster and he missed this move. Well, yeah, maybe I'm missing stuff too. Well, perfectionist, forget it. You're going to waste your time trying to do it. And if somebody finds the flaw in your analysis, good for them. It shows they're improving. That shows they're paying attention to what you're teaching. But too many chess authors and chess teachers, they're trying to do everything perfect. And this is dead wrong. I mean, so many good chess teachers, they're using computers to analyze the position. Like, here the computer suggests this move. Here the computer suggests this move. Every move. Who cares what the computer thinks? What does the human think? Okay? Because the way to get better at chess is not to sit here and rely on a computer to tell you what the best move is. The way to get better at chess is to sit down and tear a game apart and find the best move a human can, because then you're truly and fully developing your analytical skills. So I don't care how good of a teacher you are, if you're using a computer in your analysis and saying computer should do this or computer should do that, you're not helping your students, okay? That's just my 2 cents. And game analysis, everything I see nowadays is coming out they're trying to show the best move. Well, who cares? You're going to get better by finding the best moves under your power, period. I'm right. The other masters are wrong. They can play better chess than I am, but that's just the way it is. Okay, so end of soapbox. Okay, so anyway, he missed the rook d3, and unfortunately he misses another good move here. Oh, he didn't play c takes. He played knight f2, and knight f2 is a blunder, and maybe you could find it. Black to play and do the best he can. Pause the video. Okay. You've resumed. What can black do? Well, there's an old saying, always check, it might be mate. Well, bishop d4, that just allows knight takes bishop. That's no good. What other checks do we have? Knight d5 check. Ooh, he just takes it. What about this move? That's mate. Isn't that pretty? A nice checkmate of the king in the middle of the board. Not quite a smothered mate, but the two white knights are taking away flight squares from the king. E2 is covered by the black bishop. D2 and D3 are covered by either one of the rook or bishop or both. Same with D4. The other bishop covers that as well as the rook, and the queen and the knight both share observation of the F4 square. So Sam, you had a very nice mate and won here, but you missed it. Don't worry. I've done it before. It happens. So what? Who cares? We're trying to get you guys to play better. We accept games that are flawed, because only when you look at the flaws and see what the flaws are, Do you find better moves? And if this is the best game you had, that's terrific. You've got a great game. You're going to have better ones. All of you are going to have better ones. Don't expect to play at brilliancy, but submit your best games. And I'll give you all kinds of insight on these things. Okay, so let's see. Let's back it up. Went a little too far. Okay, so he missed the mate, knight g2, and unfortunately, like I say, he didn't see it. Knight f2. What did he play? He played knight d3, trying to get back the idea of the fork. If knight takes, then rook takes. But white just gets in a bad game here. Doesn't really matter what white does. Again, he's down a piece. His king's exposed. Here comes the queen into the position. There's queen takes f2. What's wrong with that? I mean, there's probably nothing wrong with it. There's so many ways to win this. It almost doesn't matter. But this is fine. It's a discovered check, and he gets the rook as opposed, and the knight's still loose, and now the other knight's loose. And I think at this point, white decided that he didn't want to play this anymore, and he resigned. So, why did this happen? Because white didn't develop, and black knew to bust the center open. And you don't have to play a perfect game. Doesn't matter that he missed the mate and won. Doesn't matter that he missed rook d3 check. Black's having his way here. Okay, black found moves that won, and he can sit down with this with his head held high, even with its flaws, and know that he played a good game, and sit down and find other ways to win this. And because the fact that he's sitting down and analyzing this position out, looking at some ideas, that will develop his chess thinking skills. That will make him a better player. And when you do this with your games, that will make you a better player. Don't waste time studying other people's games. Study yours. Take my word for it. That's one of the reasons I went up in strength. That and correspondence chess. We have online chess here at chess.com. Take your time. Think about your moves. I know Sam's doing that. He tells me all the time. I'm taking my time and thinking, and it's working. So that's the key to getting better. That's what y'all want. All right. I want to thank everyone for their time. I'm going to shut this one down, post it, and get another one out to you real soon. Have a great day. Thanks.